Let's combat and fight back with maltracks. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maat.
A BB Fahode, a BB to me. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister. I just butchered that introduction, so I'm gonna start it over again, family. All right, so a BB Fahode, a BB to me. Peace to all of my thinkers, truth speakers, and truth seekers. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Maat. Thank you for joining another powerful discussion. And tonight I have with me another powerful guest, but he is no stranger to the community. Baba Mwalimu Baruti. How are you doing tonight, Baba?
I'm doing excellent, Dr. Maat. It's always good to be here. And I always tell folks whenever they botch up stuff, I can tell you stories. So, you know, as long as I can say I understood, we're good.
That's right. Ashe. Family, take a moment out to thumb up this video. You know how the YouTube algorithm works. The more you engage with it, the more it's circulated on social media. So help us get this information out there to the people. Baba's going to drop a lot of information, and I know he's been on several times. And if you watch prior interviews, you know that when Baba comes on, he brings the heat. So take a moment out, thumb up this video, family. Also share the video. Sharing is caring. And if you're watching my broadcast on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to my channel, or you may be watching on another platform, head on over to YouTube, type in Dr. Maat, subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so that whenever I go live, you will be notified. And I only go live once or twice a week, so you don't have to worry about getting a bunch of notifications. Also, family, I've created a Truth to Power Talk playlist on my channel, and I've brought on Baba Baruti. I brought on Mama Ya Baruti. I brought on Dr. Malefe Asante, Dr. Wade Nobles, Professor James Smalls, Dr. Kaba Kamene, Dr. Derry. I brought on a lot of folks. And I brought on a lot of people. And so make sure that you go into the archives and you check out those discussions. Also, family, join me on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Read Book Club. We will be reading, and I have the book on my shelf. It's called The Color of Money. We're going to have our first discussion on January the 9th. I repeat, on January the 9th, we will have our first discussion on the book, The Color of Money. Okay. And it's a powerful book. It's going to talk about the racial wealth gap in Black banks, the history of Black banking. And so be sure to check us out on January the 9th. Okay. Get the book as soon as you can, and preferably get the book from a Black independent bookstore before running to Amazon to get the book. All right, family. So thank you so much for joining in. I see a lot of you are coming in. I see your comments in the building. I see New Black World Order, Sister Tamika, Sister Juju is in the building. Miss Old Lady, peace to you's in the building. Baba Sakim Ra is in the building. Donnie Williams in the building. A beautiful mind. The Queen is in the building. The young warrior, Baba Baruti, the young warrior, Jeremiah Africa. The brother who repatriated to Ghana. Yes. He's in the building. That's the young warrior. He's in the building. Sister Bonetta's in the building. Brother Melanated Cafe is in the building. The young warrior right here. This is another young warrior, Baba. His name is Ryan Jordan, another young warrior, a strong African young warrior. He's about 22, 23. So he's in the building. Yes. So peace to everyone who joined. Metaphysically me, peace to you, Queen. Peace to you, Queen. And thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right. And so the topic at hand, the crisis of leadership. Who should we listen to? Who should we follow? So, Baba, you and I kind of talked about this offline, how in the community nowadays, even with like social media, there's a lot of personality worshiping going on. It doesn't seem like, we're into the business of vetting people before we deem them as a leader. What we do is we like their personality, we like their swag, and so then these people, they garner a lot of followers, they garner a lot of support, only to find out later on that these people are disingenuous. And I'm not going to call names. I'm just talking about what I've observed over the years. And so I reached out to you and I said, Bob, I really want to have this conversation with you. And you said, sure. And so you came on. So I want to kind of read an excerpt from Blueprint for Black Power. Dr. Amos Wilson, in chapter 31, he has a chapter entitled The Crisis of Leadership. And he says, the relative powerlessness of African Americans, as we have demonstrated, is not due to an absence of resources, but to the misjudgment and misguided intentionalities of their leadership. The vast resources of the African American community and their potential for conversion into formidable political economic power have been ruinously wasted or prostituted by leaders whose ineptness borders on treachery. So, Baba, I guess I would like to begin the discussion by asking you, what constitutes a leader?
Wow. Of course, I have to go back to our traditions in answering that because we're African. And that's the tradition that we should be following relative to leadership. And I guess over the last few years, I keep using the term, I keep saying, we are people of evidence. We are people of evidence. We are people of evidence because we have lost sight of that with this superficiality that you're talking about in terms of people who come on, I can smile at you. We have been reduced, and I am going to answer that, but we have been reduced to a people who act and think like our enemies. So with the idea, just look at one aspect of it, the idea of contradictions to us is no longer a problem. Versus for them, it's like the image is what's important. It doesn't make a difference what I do at home as long as I sound good or I look good. So I could be the kind of speaker who, or charismatic leader, and eloquence can be evil, but I can be the kind of charismatic leader who goes home every night and beats my wife and children, daily. But as long as I sound good, as long as I look good, because we don't look any deeper than the contradiction. But we are people of evidence in terms of what that person is supposed to be about. You couldn't become someone of political power in our tradition unless your family, well, let me put it like this, your ability to do that was judged upon your family relationships. It wasn't judged upon how well you talked or how many books you read or who you knew. It was based upon how you treated your family, because character was what you were supposed to be bringing to the stage. Character was what you were supposed to be bringing into this environment where you were in a position to guide and make decisions for the people. So for me, when I'm looking, and of course, I'm not looking for leadership. And interestingly, there was never a period in my time when I was looking for leadership, which brings up the other point of gullibility of people who are so sub-integration oriented that they'll follow anybody. Ella Baker made a very important point about, powerful people don't need leaders. They don't need leadership. They don't need anybody to guide them because they're powerful people, because they define for themselves what they need to do then and there. And of course, all of that, wherever you're at, it works together because everybody's trying to be righteous. Everybody's trying to move in a direction that assists us. Bringing somebody, Bobby Hannibal said, if it helps Black people, then it's good. If it hurts Black people, then it's bad. It's that simple. We made stuff so complicated. So when you're looking at leadership, I mean, we can go down a list of things that are supposed to be us, beyond the tradition where character was so important, where you were judged based upon how you treated people, where you were judged based upon how you treated your family or how you were respected or not respected in your family. You were judged based upon what you did for other people. You were judged based upon your record of truth, your record of saying things and doing things that assisted your people. Not just the mouth. We move to a point where as long as you can talk a good game, and I keep coming back to that because that's very troubling to me.
No, Baba, please. It's the truth. It's the truth.
It's very troubling where someone can come out of the blue And we often forget also that agents don't have to be paid. Okay, we use the word agents when we're talking about certain people, you know, sometimes to just do damage to them, but sometimes because it is true. But we have to forget that all agents, in fact, I would argue most of the agents are not paid. They do this because they want to do damage to African people, or they see this as a way to succeed.
It's fed.
Yeah, and you see this group of gullible people who will buy anything, who will buy any kind of lie, buy anything, which will, if I can put it in a nutshell, which will take them away from having to be responsible for being African.
Whew.
Because when you're running so hard and fast, and most of us are still running at breakneck speed away from anything that's African, away from the African continent, unless Europeans or businesses is over there to exploit them. So we're running away with all of our might from being African. So any theory, anything that creates chaos, which is something that we will follow because it gives us a reason not to have to deal with the reality that we're dealing with. I found a lot of spiritualists who are fit into that boat of seeing their spirituality, I say self-serving, because it's not about the business of liberating African people. And we read back and we see, you know, statements that the spiritualist, the priest, was not sitting back in the village counting beads when the warriors went out to war. The spiritualist was right in the front. Okay, so we have to judge people based upon. For me, it's simple. You judge people based upon
their deeds,
their aspirations toward African sovereignty, which should be reflected in their deeds, which should be reflected in the words that they say. I'm gonna judge people based upon that aspiration. I'm gonna judge people based upon complementarity, because that's an African tradition. Okay, at least aspirations. I mean, everybody can't have a compliment right now, and it's going to take some time for folks to find compliments, and there are reasons why in this insanity. But to have that as an aspiration, to have that as a desire, to be working toward it, to be committed toward that ideal. Okay. We have people out here speaking on complementarity who've never been in relationships or never been in a successful relationship any given period of time. But because they're eloquent, because they know how to use words, because they know how to use the right words, then they're allowed to speak on topics that they don't. And then that contradiction to me is so glaring among some folks. It's like you're in a house and you have two people who are experts in different areas, but the one person, because they have the quote unquote power, they're dictating, not only doing what they do, but they're dictating to the other person who they have no expertise in how to do what they do. So you have people talking about things that they have no idea what they're talking about, or they're talking about things that are not connected to doing. Yes.
And no, Bob, I wanted to enforce what you just reinforce what you just stated. I've noticed that a whole lot in this space and time. There are a lot of people who are experts in everything. I look online, people are doctors, they're experts in the medical field, they're experts in STEM, like you said, they're experts on relationships, they're experts on politics, they're experts. And then when you dig deep and you actually vet these people, they aren't qualified to speak on the things that they're speaking on, Baba. So let me ask you a question. When did we become such a gullible people that we just follow anything and anyone? When did that take place? Do you think that it's due to the Ma'afa, that when the Ma'afa and when with that cultural discontinuity took place? Well, I don't want to say cultural discontinuity, but cultural and physical and spiritual. Do you think that's when we started to evolve into such a gullible people?
When we started running away from ourselves, when we started seeing the European way as the only way, the best way for us to move, the best thing for us to be, the best kind of person, character that we need to have. And we came to understand in European reality that success was your ability to manipulate people. Jacob Carruthers talks about it very well in Intellectual Warfare, where the European idea of work is getting other people to do your work for you. Now you're the worker. The people who are doing the work, they're not the workers. You're the worker because you're able to manipulate people in this way. So we have like the second, third, really fourth generation of people who have been brought up at least with the idea on in a common sense that you're supposed to, success for you is getting over on people. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. Righteousness flew out the window. Righteousness flew out the window, I would argue, during the time of our enslavement, because as we were in the process of losing our minds, becoming more mental-sidal, and that did not apply to everyone, but losing our minds and adopting someone else's mind, that other mind was not a righteous mind. Our Kemetic ancestors said that the Greek tongue was one of noise and confusion. And they weren't talking about loudness. They were talking about just saying stuff to be saying stuff. I remember, and to create the confusion within our minds. I remember the first month or so in grad school, I heard in a number of different ways, if you're coming out of the school I came out of, if you're coming out of this school, then your job, you're supposed to be an expert at being able to win an argument, whether you're right or wrong, whether what you're saying is true or not. You're supposed to be the kind of person who can win the argument. And that, of course, didn't sit well with me. But when you are in an environment where this is the norm, where in order for you to succeed, then you have to manipulate other people, where success is based upon your ability to get over on people. And in fact, that becomes a success in and of itself, to be able to manipulate. How can you have, and I guess I'm moving away from your question for a second, but how can you have a situation where you have Africans who are putting their life's work, their life's energy, their life savings into educating African people, and you have people who are taking their stuff, duplicating it, and selling it and making money off of it and not giving any of the proceeds to those people? How can you have that kind of mentality? Okay, we're talking about a mentality here which allows people to feel comfortable, in fact, to feel good, to feel like they're winning. I used to say when I was teaching undergrad, because they really kind of didn't get the point, I said, when is murder, murder? In the European system, when is rape, rape? When is murder, murder? When is theft, theft? It's only those things when you're caught. It's only those things when you have been busted for it. And otherwise, you got over. Otherwise, you won. Okay, so you're talking about a mentality that is so steeped in that there is no righteousness. The only righteousness is if you are saying something that can guide people in a particular direction, and you can manipulate them, with whatever that is. But it's not because you're being righteous; it's because you're using other people. As we became more of this, if I own the businesses in whatever the land is that I'm in charge of, and my businesses operate based upon certain principles, if you want to win within that environment, within that social environment, within that business environment, then you have to go by my rules. Otherwise, honesty doesn't work in the West. If you're an honest person, you're a fool in terms of how you're going to get treated. If you're an honest person, you are a fool. The best of everything, virtually the best of everything, politicians, ministers, what have you, the best are the ones who can lie the best. They're the ones that can manipulate people the best. Okay? They're the ones that can do things that they should not have done and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and the people are see them as such a high pedestal that they will immediately let it slide, let it go by. Okay, no problem, and come right back. How can you have that? I can't even imagine that occurring in our tradition. I can't imagine that occurring, because it was supposed to be about being of good character, setting a standard, setting an example of being of good character. And in this society, on the front line, the warriors who are honest, who are trying to do this for their people, who are doing doing the good work, who are feeding people, then they get looked at like, what's wrong with you, or okay, I got to use this person too. He's got whatever he's got, I'm going to take it. That's our judgment, and that came when we lost who we were. And I'm not going to get into people, well, you're talking about some ideal situation in Africa. No, Africans weren't perfect, but we had a model that was based on being human. We had a model of character that was based upon treating other people with respect. How can you have communalism as the fundamental way that a people live if people are dishonest? Communalism means that I'm accountable to other people, and I give to other people freely based upon their need, and they give to me freely based upon my need. How can you have that exist when everybody's a liar and a thief? It can't happen. So for us to call ourselves a communal society, come from a communal people, and to understand this, to understand what is required to be communal, required to be a real community. But when we look over time, we see this disintegrating. Okay. When I was a child, still, I know I've talked about this here before, but when I was a child, still, the most loved person in the community, the most honored person in the community, the most elevated person in the community was the person who gave the most with the least expectation of return. So in our community, it was this sister who lived around the corner from us who fed all the children whenever they were hungry. And even, those like me who weren't hungry, but we loved those biscuits. Okay, she was honored above everybody in the community. When she walked, and she was poor. Her husband didn't have anything. She was working class poor. Okay, she didn't have any possessions. I don't even think she had a car. But when she walked through the community, she was held in high esteem because she served her community, and she did it without flinching an eye. That mentality that we had when we were young, we really honored the person who would give you the shirt off their back in the middle of the winter. We lost that by becoming these extreme individualists who can't, I didn't say you don't, who can't care about anyone but ourselves. And it's becoming worse and worse and worse. And I'm not blaming the children, because the children didn't raise themselves.
Come on.
When you have children who are so spoiled that you have to motivate them to want to learn so that they can become better empowered, because they have been allowed to do whatever it is that they want for the entirety of their lives. We're raising warriors to what? To die? Because when you don't raise children with inner strength, when everything that is difficult from them is done by you or taken away as something to challenge them and to make them stronger, we're heading toward loss, complete total loss, because you don't have a people who you won't have a people who have the strength to fight when the battle hits them in the face. They won't have the ability to do that because they don't have the inner strength. Plus, being a super individualist, okay, well, they paid me to kill my people, or they paid me not to participate in, or I'm not going to go and fight for African people. I won't get paid. Okay, I need for me. So when you have that mentality, then it's no surprise what we have for leadership. It's absolutely no surprise what we have for leadership. But again, I can't imagine, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think so, but I can't imagine this occurring in traditional African society, because our definition of character was based on being righteous. You picked a fight with somebody who was smaller than you, who was weaker than you, not necessarily smaller, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but someone who was weaker than you, somebody who you knew you could beat, you would consider to be a punk.
That's right. I grew up. That was happening in the early 80s. That was happening in the early 80s, like you said. You were,
But now I'm seeing people beating up on people who are, they're innocent. They maybe can't fight, or they're not strong enough, or what have you. When we look at the leadership that we have, excuse me, I'm sorry, I said the wrong word. The misleadership, which I heard throughout the 70s and the 80s. When I look at the misleadership, the majority of what we have is quote unquote in charge is misleadership. And this misleadership is extremely sub-integration focused. Their goal is to become Yurugu. What did Amos Wilson say? I forget which one it was in. He said that our goal is not to become these thieves, these barbarians. Our goal is to bring them to heel. And then when I read that sentence, I'm like, okay, well, who do we have that has the courage, to do this, to continue the fight of doing this? I was paying attention to a video that I was tagged in by some serious brothers earlier today, talking about some young folks online who are saying very disparaging things about people like Professor James Smalls.
Wow.
And other folks And my immediate thought is, well, in this particular cultural context, in this reality, your ability to rise is based upon your ability to pull somebody else down.
And Baba, can I interject real quick? Sure. I do, like you said, it is an attack. I see it. It's an attack on our elders, an attack on our elders' work. And peace to people like young Ryan Jordan and Jeremiah Africa. And these are the young generation, and they don't play. When they see that the elders are being attacked, they come out and they did it. But like you said, Baba, the ability for people to get popular is, I need to tear down this person. I need to expose this person, or that whole culture. It's like you said, it's a mentality that we're contending with. But please continue, Baba.
So when you do that, what you just described, when you do that, then you continue to fragment and fragment and fragment and fragment of people. So you're serving your purpose, creating greater divisions among us. So if you're not creating a divide, if you're not creating chaos within the community, then you can't rise. If you're not introducing something that doesn't make sense or isn't hurting somebody, you can't rise. And I'm sure Urugu is sitting back in their recliners, just laughing up a storm, because it's like you set something in motion and now it's taken off on a life of its own.
That's right.
So you have more. And to me, one of the major statements about this is when you have people who are centered, who are doing the work, over time, they have become the minority in the conscious community. They have become the crazy one in the conscious community, versus before it was the folks who were a bad character. It was the folks who weren't following the traditions or the tenets of what it means to be African. But now when you look at these trends, and it's important to study the trends, because if you study the trends, then you can see what's coming. They teach us in social studies, well, you're not supposed to predict anything, coming. You're just supposed to be learning material to be learning material. No, Chancellor Williams told us something different. We're supposed to be studying this stuff so that we can see what to correct, so that we can see the direction that things are taking. So when we study our story, when we study our recent story, then we see this pattern. I can remember when the conscious community was the conscious community. When it didn't play, when locks were something that carried some political weight. When somebody had locks, then you knew that they probably knew some stuff.
No, now it's a hairdo. It's a hairdo. It's a hairdo.
So consciousness is the same thing now. Consciousness is becoming the same thing now. And pretty soon the attack's going to be on those folks who are claiming to be, or who are centered. Because you have to destroy that in order for weak people to become strong. It's still like the same thing we talked about before, where if you have a room full of grown males and some little boys in that room, when a man walks into that room, everybody knows that those are grown males, that those aren't men. It's immediately evident. Same thing with a woman walking into a room of grown females. People are going to be that's a woman. Oh, okay, I thought these were women. No, that's a woman right there. So it's the same thing within the quote unquote conscious community, where your job is to remove the centered people from having a voice, from having a presence, from being the righteous ones, so that you become the righteous ones. I remember when I left Morehouse, and one of the male faculties in the department, he became the new radical. He became, and I'm not saying this because I'm envious or what have you, but for me it was hilarious because students understood. He came in, and this guy was conservative in all of his thinking, and he ended up being the individual who the quote unquote radical students came to, and the school was able to identify them and to squash their progress. So you have, we could go all kinds of places with this, because that could be the motivation and the agency behind some of these people who are doing this kind of work, where you get this following behind you, and we can identify who these people are. I mean, I'm speculating, I'm making assumptions, but still, I've seen it done in other places. COINTELPRO has gone nowhere. It's become more sophisticated. It has gone nowhere. So the keeping an eye to make sure that the Black Messiah doesn't come, that has not changed. That hasn't changed at all. It's just that the primary people working the magic for this government agency, or all government agencies, if you will, is those who look like us. Okay. But I'd say back to the point of leadership in court. You know, you can take me wherever you want to. I'm looking at people who understand the concept of preparedness. See, when I'm looking for leaders, I'm not looking for major voices. And in fact, the vast majority of people who I consider to be leaders in our community, folks don't even know their name. Folks, you know, may not even mean like somebody in the dark and you can't see them because they're so busy doing the work. They don't have time. Of course, we need people who are doing the speaking, and we need those people to be accountable to remain accountable, because we have quite a few who are speaking for us. But we have lost that connection between thought, word, and deed, where we the only thing that we hear now is the word. That's the only thing we're seeing now is the word. The only thing we're concentrating now is the word. We're not connecting it to what this person is doing. Okay, every once in a while you see a post where somebody said, well, you know, your mother, don't forget your mom and your dad and the elders in your family, you know, that they're leaders and we need to be holding them up high too. We've forgotten all about that. We shouldn't be reminded about that. We should be reminded about the people who are behind the microphones. Okay, we should understand the people in the community who are doing the work. The brother who breaks up the fight, the sister who takes in, you know, the little girl who, you know, got kicked out of her home or what have you. You know, those are the leaders. The brother who takes his lawnmower on his lawnmower mount and he mows that elder's lawn and doesn't charge him anything because he knows that this man can't do it easily. These are the leaders to me. Leaders are supposed to be models.
Come on, that's right, models. That I love how you drove that home, Baba. That a leader is a positive and healthy model, and like you said, you know they say you judge your fruit, you judge a I didn't lost my train of thought, Baba. I lost my train. Yes, Baba. Thank you. I had literally my brain just froze, but absolutely, and so leaders, like you said, should be positive and healthy models. And so we should be able to vet these people that come purport to be leaders based on how they live. And so but like you said, we don't live in an environment like that, Bob. We live in an environment where people are looking at the way someone dresses, their physical appearance, their personality, how if they're a charismatic speaker. They're not judging these people based on any substance. And so Baba, let me ask you a question. Do you think there should be like elders, like maybe a council of elders to vet these folks who come into the community before they are accepted by us? Like there needs to be a process. Like someone shouldn't be able to just walk into the community and say, hey, you know, I read X amount of books. I'm articulate. I dress a certain type of way, I look a certain type of way, and boom, I'm a leader. Or boom, I'm on stage, and now I'm being paid to go lecture. I'm doing this. Do you think like there should be a council of elders who serve as like the gatekeepers? Baba, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that we would need to make sure that we're clear on the definitions in your question, because one of the words that you use would be community. So who is this community that we are talking about? You know, I mean, we can assume that it's everybody, but there, a number of years ago, several different brothers came to me and they were asking, Bob, we need a council of elders and regional, national, local council of elders. Yes, we do. Definitely, we need it. I said, and they were saying, well, why don't you all do this? Baba, get together with some other brothers and sisters and form. I said, that's not going to work within this environment. That's not going to work within what we are defined as community, because you have to have a sense of accountability by those people who the elders are making the decisions for. If the elders, and I'm a big advocate of this, I don't pursue it in terms of trying to create anything like that, because to me it's almost like ass backward the way that we're approaching it within this reality. This is not traditional African society, right, where you can look and you can see who's, like you said, they have a record. So for me, the solution is fairly simple, but it might put a little weight on the warriors. The warriors need to decide who they see, who they vetted as being worthy of being in that decision-making position, because they're the ones who are going to have to abide by the decisions. And if you have put this 10 people, this 11 people into a position where you're taking issues to them for them to resolve based upon their wisdom, then the decision that they make, you have to be willing to accept that decision and move on it. Okay? That's going to be pretty much mandatory accepted if I've chosen you to be in this position. Versus me saying, well, I'm an elder in the community now, and I've gotten together with these, 9 other people, and we decided to form an elders council, and we're going to solve all the problems because there's no. Yeah, I'll give you an example here in Atlanta, and I'm of course naming no names, but here in Atlanta, a good number of years ago, must have been about maybe 15 years ago, a council of elders was put together because a brother in the quote unquote conscious community was accused looking up a girl's dress, and this wasn't like the first time for this accusation. So he agreed, and he didn't have to agree. That's what I'm saying. You don't have that kind of control. Then I can say, well, I don't respect them. I didn't elect them. I didn't put them in place. They're not my elders. But he agreed to come and be a part of the proceedings, and there were, I believe, 7 of us who were asked to do this. And we talked about it, and we came to the conclusion that there was some truth to the accusation. And he said, okay, he said, I'm not admitting to guilt, but I'm going to abide by it, because he was a good guy. And I'll say in terms of his protocol in the community. So the decision was made because he was a drummer. He wasn't allowed to drum at any of the events for like a year. There were other things that he wasn't allowed to be in such and such a space by himself with blah, 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 blah. There were a number of guidelines because we didn't want to beat him down. And I don't think the community wanted to beat him down. They needed an example, and they wanted to feel safer. The sister who reported it, she got really beat down badly by members of the community, especially some older women in the community for reporting him. But what we in the community said, okay, great. But within a month, he's back drumming at events.
Wow.
There wasn't any enforcement. I mean, you can't call me at my house and I got to go run to the other side of town and handle a situation. Warriors are supposed to handle that.
Right.
Okay. Warriors are supposed to do that's their work, and that should be their work. But if there's no enforcement, so since then, every discussion having to do with elders, and I agree 190% that we need elders councils, local, regional, national, international. We need that. But it can't be like you do in the West, where people get elected and then they don't serve their people. Or they say something and, it's like the people who choose, can ignore completely and totally what they say. So my conclusion from that is that this has to be warriors' work. The warriors have to decide who in their community or who in their region or who in this country, what have you, would serve or should serve as elders, and then create the environment for them, knowing, accepting that they will follow these guidelines accordingly. Also, this is not traditional African society. So you hear a lot of people saying, well, elders, they should do their work and their responsibility without remuneration, without any kind of compensation for it. Well, this is a capitalist system. Elders are already overworked because there are so few of them. So when you're bringing elders these things to do in terms of a council, then there needs to be something. There needs to be some kind of reciprocity there. Okay, well, Baba, on the days that you have to serve on the council, we'll watch your dog. There has, like you said,
some reciprocity.
Yeah, there has to be some reciprocity, and I'm not finding that idea being received well. It's as if we can pretend that we're an traditional African society when it comes to certain issues like responsibilities for other people, but when it comes to us handling what needs to be done, somehow that kind of can slip out the window, out of the door. So when you have an environment like that where people are trying to paste European structures onto African community, then it's not going to work. It can't work if we're trying to be African. Now, if we're trying just, slowly but surely just gradually moving our way to being European, and trying to find ways to look good in the process, well, okay, we can do that. But if we're trying to be African, which is what we should be trying to do, as I said at the beginning, my primary definition for a leader is somebody who sees us, moves us toward African sovereignty. To me, if you're not moving us toward African sovereignty, then you don't qualify for any kind of leadership as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
In terms of the politics I'm pursuing. Okay, so if that's not the primary thing on your agenda, then you don't follow. You can't possibly be a leader for me. If you're not fully familiar with, and not operating within the principles of Ma'at relative to being around African-centered people, then you can't possibly qualify to be a leader in our community, as far as I'm concerned. If you're not modeling, yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, Bob, let me ask you this. Brother Kenneth Gardner, I want to know your thoughts on his statement. He said, after 400 years of enslavement under our historical enemy, we should know what to do. He said, we really don't need leadership. We need a code, like Neely Fuller Jr. said, to follow. There needs to be a code. I was just about to ask you, what did you think about that?
I agree 100%. The only question for me is, how do you enforce that code?
I was just about to say, you said, how do you enforce it? My question was, how do we get on it? Like you said, okay. How do we get on code? And then how do we enforce the code?
Okay. And of course, the first step is, to design the code, to create the code, to understand this insanity, and that will require a representative group of, brothers and sisters who are righteous and who see what's going on and see the problems and see where we need to be. And then, like you said, how do we get on code? Well, that, I believe, would come in the defining of communities. We want, it's just like we've been told so many times, everybody doesn't have business going back to Africa, because some people aren't going to do anything but bring back chaos and create problems. They have no business near the African continent. Some people have no business near the African community. So Negroes, I'm glad that they're not running around, in my circles. Mm-hmm. So if you have this situation, then you have to define what is the community. You have to have a collection of people, and it can go outward from that, but you need to have a collection of people who are in agreement that we're going to abide by these codes. Because I've heard a number of times folks say, well, we need a code of conduct on the internet. And of course, my media, who's going to enforce this? How are you going to enforce this? Because you do need a code of conduct. There needs to be, for people who are being civilized based on the root word civil toward each other online, then there can be this set of codes that work along with it. But again, if you can't create this community or see the parameters of this community in terms of who it applies to and who it doesn't apply to, then the code is like the 10 Commandments. Okay, thou shalt not steal. As long as you're sitting here reading this, because there's nothing to steal right here. So if you don't have a community that, and again, that community can and should grow. That community should be a model to attract other people who are like minds, but who have serious doubts, who can now come because they see this works. So this can expand, but you have to identify a community. If you would want to say, you have a test case where you see if this works. Now, we had this going on. East organization, okay? People need to research the East organization. They had a set of codes. They had codes for brothers. They had codes for sisters. It made perfect sense. And they worked together as a community, okay? And they understood that there were insiders and outsiders. Even though they, of course, treated the outsiders in the same way that they treated the insiders, they didn't expect necessary reciprocity from people who did not understand what they were about and what they were trying to do. But people, we have communities. Okay, but I think that part of it is with them maybe setting a better model or a better standard in terms of being an example of creating a community, an African community that follows codes, that believes in these codes, that checks each other based on these codes. And if you come into that organization, then you have to understand these codes and you have to expect to be checked when you deviate from whatever the rule guideline is. Whenever you're talking about something serious, and a lot of times I don't think we're serious enough. When the codes and the things that we honor from our ancestors, we were strict about that. We didn't play. Okay, you committed this thing wrong. I mean, it's like the Maroons, or the Quilombos. You showed someone the path to where the settlement is, to where we're at, and you're dead. We're gonna find you. We're gonna hang you from the nearest tree. There wasn't any playing. But we don't. John Clark said, we're not ready for revolution, because if we were ready for revolution, we'd be willing to kill relatives. We're not ready for that. We're not ready for that. We still want to play around with it and maybe be seen and maybe even be a good model, but we're not ready to take it to the serious level where we are actually nation building. I mean, we can. This is so frustrating sometimes, because we can talk about this nation building thing, this is an example of nation building. The codes and the community and the elders council. This is an example of nation building. Okay, but we're not willing to do the things that are required to maintain a certain kind of community. So as long as we're not able to do that, then agents, whether they're paid or not, are going to see that. Which another part of that course, we always want to advertise what we're doing. We got to tell everybody what we're doing, and that the perfect Urugu doesn't have to do research anymore, because all he do is hold his ear to the wall and he knows what everybody's doing everywhere.
Yeah, just log in. He don't even need to put his ear on the wall. He just log on to social media. Just hit the button, Bob. Just go and log on to social media.
And he knows what everybody's doing, because we have been taught. That's part of that spoilage process also, where you don't learn everything that comes to your mouth is supposed to come out. So you don't learn so many areas of self-control. And that's, to me, that was part of the process. To me, you talk about conspiracies. I think that Doc Spock's baby book relative to us and his promotion among us was a conspiracy to get us to separate us from our children and to have our children in such a position that they were more easily manipulated, more easily controlled, could not keep secrets, could not take anything serious, could not dedicate themselves to a community or a communal setting, because the only thing that they could possibly think about was themselves. And if they did something for other people, then it was because it somehow benefited them. Okay, that's the position that we're in now. So if you're talking about reversing this process, even in small communities, then we have to be aware of the mentality of the people who are coming in there, the personalities of the people who are coming in there, what they're bringing with them, what kind of attitudes, what kind of sense of commitment to other people. And, a lot of us can pretend, we can spend a week or two in a community setting, and we can pretend like we love everybody and we're doing everything for everybody. We're moving chairs around for everybody and getting food for the elders and doing the rest of this stuff. But these judgments have to be based on what you've seen over a period of years. That person, even then, of course, you don't know, but at least then you have a better idea. To me, that's the same as this. You meet somebody and a week later you're married. You don't know that person. You don't know that person. They presented a particular image to you, which you apparently have fallen for, but you don't know that person. And anybody who's married know that they really don't know that person until they've been married some years. That doesn't not say that person's going to change and turn into a vampire werewolf overnight, but it's still, you really don't know that person's strengths and weaknesses because you haven't been with that person long enough to have had the experiences which will tell you.
I was just getting ready to say that, Bobby. You never know people until you go through something with that person.
Till you go through something with that person.
So Bob, let me ask you this, because during the discussion you mentioned the conscious community. When you say the conscious community, what do you mean by that? Because when people think of the conscious community, I'm not going to say names, but they think about some folks who appeared on the Breakfast Club, people who are hot YouTubers, and and so they think of these folks as the conscious community. So could you define for us what the conscious community is, Baba?
The definition I would have to give would be very sad. because the quote unquote conscious community has become very unconscious. Atlanta's supposed to be the Mecca of Black consciousness here. And I see everything in the conscious community, from homosexualized Africans to Africans who will shoot you in defense of them, to Africans who will invite and bring Europeans to drumming sessions and to events, okay, who take the greatest pleasure in being able to be with a European, who who look for other African people to use so that they can get some credit, so they can move up into other areas. So when it comes to, if you will, the conscious community, I say that here because it describes this broad collection of which the center community by default is a part of, and really is in a way it's a good default, because enemies, they look at the conscious community. Many of them just see the conscious community, and the conscious community serves as a shield for the center community because they don't see the center community for the conscious community. So I can't, I can't browbeat the conscious community completely, because they do serve a purpose. But when I'm looking at what's important, I'm looking at the center community, because when you're talking about the center community, you're talking about character. You're talking about the quality of your character. You're not talking about your ability to recite Ma'at. You're talking about your ability to act continuously on Ma'at. And if you messed up, to correct that, to work very hard to correct that. So I've come to make a distinction over like the last 15 years or so.
Between the centered community and the conscious community.
Right. The conscious community is smart enough to know not to attend any of Akabin's events because they know the things that we're going to talk about. So you don't find them there. They wouldn't dare bring their children to Akabin Institute because they know exactly what to teach them, and we're not compromising. The conscious community is fully compromised. The conscious community is fully compromised. However they want to define themselves, they are fully compromised. They eat good.
But the conscious community used to be like the centered community and conscious. Like, so when you said conscious community, that was inclusive of the centered community. You said now it's a distinction. You had the conscious community, and then you had the centered community.
And at that time that you're talking about, you didn't really have a centered community because you didn't need it.
You didn't need
the conscious community fulfilled that role. And at that time, of course, as we said before, locks meant something. They meant something political. They meant something serious. As you know, and I know plenty of people today who it's something serious. It's serious, but for the most part, it's not. The center community, if you will, it's like a process, a watering down process, where that's been set in motion. So the question, of course, would be, I guess, in a way, what's coming next? Is what's coming next, because with each stage, almost the number of people involved, actively involved, and I know there are a lot of people who are inactively involved, who are not visible. I shouldn't say inactively involved, who are not visible for good reason. Will this next level of all of these experts who are doing everything in their power to destroy anything that needs to be African, to be divisive? Major segment of the quote-unquote conscious community here in Atlanta is feminist. Major segment of the conscious community. One of the most quote-unquote radical organizations in the country here in Atlanta is defending homosexuality, and their school promotes homosexuality. So it's like,
can you tell me, you don't want to say the name of the school, Bob?
I don't want to.
Okay, yeah, you had it. Okay, you had it. Okay,
y'all would be having a fit.
Okay, don't say the name of the school. I'll do some research on it.
Yeah, it's scary to me. It's very scary to me. And it's scary more than anything else because you have people who are waking up and they hear these dimwits online and they think that that's the way. And you have people who will come to Atlanta, come to these other places, who will go to the conscious community because they realize that something is wrong. They just can't put their finger quite on what it is, so they need to learn. And you have these people waiting for them, and they turn them against what it means to be African, not only because of what they're promoting, but because of their behaviors. So we have to learn the lessons. So even though, you know, I'm sitting there talking to you and any of y'all sitting there talking to you and we do the program, it's like we can't hide. I mean, people know who we are. So if people didn't know who I was, I would immediately go underground. I would immediately, like I say, way underneath the radar. I would immediately go. But of course, we do need people who speak for us, who, you know, write for us, et cetera, et cetera. But if I wasn't me, I would be way underground. And I would be studying, keeping my eye. I would be finding those people over a period of years who were serious. I would be creating secret societies for us, because there's no people, there's no society, there's no nation that's successful, that's powerful, that doesn't have secret societies. The things that would give us power at a national level, at a societal level, even at a community level, when you're talking about like center community, what have you, they've been stripped from us and our desires. So to have a military, for some of us, what do you need a military for? Whitey's going to save us. Or to have secret societies where you gather information and no one knows who you are. And you pursue whatever needs to be pursued in the interest of African people without letting anyone know what you're doing, knowing that the ancestors know what you're doing. That's not enough anymore. Everybody's got to be seen. So if we're talking about returning to this, if we're talking about, I would love to believe that our young folks are intelligent. And when I say young folks to me, I talk about, you know, folks who are 35 and younger. That our young folks are highly intelligent, and that a number of them are doing this work. They're not broadcasting, but they're doing the work. They're creating these secret societies. They're doing what needs to be done to do. I have to believe that. I honestly have to believe it. I'm not just saying that to convince myself. I honestly have to believe that, because I believe if we're genius, then we see. If we're genius, then we should have learned from history, and history's supposed to teach us how not to make those same dumb mistakes again. If we understand history, then we know that the last thing that we need to do is to let Europeans know anything that we're doing. Because we know that that's the only way that they find out. There's never been a successful invasion of Europeans of another people without there being a traitor. Never in history. Never in history. So those people who have studied a little, doesn't need to be a lot, studied a little history, understand, because in the social sciences, your job is to study the problem. So for me, that's studying Urugu. So if I know their story, if I know what they're about, if I know what they do, if I know what they've done, then I need to take steps to make sure that they can't do to me what they did to my ancestors. I need to build, and if it's just me that's building, then so be it. It's amazing how this individualism that spoilage has done such a good job of producing in our community, is that it doesn't involve a degree of sacrifice where you do what's right because it's right.
Baba, my mother she put, and I didn't see her comment. She, about 10 minutes ago, she put a question in the comment section. She said, "Is anyone righteous? The nature of people when put in a position of leadership have the tendency to change." And so, Baba, you know how like some folks, we think, like you said, you may observe these people over a period of time, and then they get in a position of leadership, they get a little power, and then you see the real person. So she said, "Is anyone righteous?" What are your thoughts on that, Baba?
I would argue that there are some righteous people, and most of those righteous people, when Ikwe Arm was talking in the book Healers, and he was talking about the rules of being a healer, and one of the rules was, I do not go, to work for the king. He was talking about, you don't go and work for a political structure that's designed to destroy you. You're going to be corrupted. So we're not in disagreement. I mean, I heard when I was teaching college, I heard lots of black young men, because that was primarily who I taught. I'm going to go in corporate America and I'm going to make it and I'm going to come back and help my people. And I'm saying, you'll never have made it. So you're never going to come back. You're not going to come back. And of course, none of them came back to my knowledge. But if you're going to, it's like you can't change a structure that's doing what it was designed to do. Those of us who go in there to do that, we some way, shape, form, fashion, we're either going to get completely, totally disgruntled and disheartened and leave, or we're going to bend. We're going to change. We're going to fit that. Okay? You can't work for somebody. I guess maybe you could, but I would think you can't work for 20, 25, 30 years for somebody in that kind of a situation and not become that to some degree. Okay? You're going to have to question things that you believe, because there are going to be people there who are going to appear to make what you think a contradiction. So if we're talking about sovereignty, then you're talking about creating organizational, institutional structures of your own. I'm not talking about, I would be a fool to try to go into the public school system of Atlanta and expect to be able at some point in time, be able to teach these children that heterosexuality is the African way. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And if I'm in that situation, then there are people who I'm going to have to associate with, et cetera, that I'm either going to have to become friends with and appreciate them and all the rest of that good stuff, or I'm going to lose. You can't, just like a Negro can't come and teach at Akaban. I mean, he could pretend he was African, but after a while, that's not going to work. Mm-hmm. That's not going to work. I don't buy the idea. I don't buy the idea of going in and changing the dinosaur. I can't go into the NAACP and change their agenda. Okay. That's their agenda. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be their agenda. Mm-hmm. So it's not that there aren't righteous people. It's just, as she pointed out, so many people who may have been or may have thought themselves to be righteous moved into evil settings. Okay. And as I've said time and time again, in an evil environment, evil is rewarded. Honesty, dishonesty, goodness is punished. So you can't come in there as a righteous person. What is everywhere I've been in the Air Force, I've worked for the Air National Guard, I've worked for Nota Business Systems, I've worked for Morehouse, I worked at Chicago State, I've worked in a whole bunch of places. And in each one of those places, the goal of many of the people who I work with is to find some fault in me or what I did that could be held over my head so that I would have to knuckle under to being unrighteous. That's the goal. You see it time and time again. I don't know, and I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not like this handsome guy would have you, but I don't know how many times by people who I figured out, learned later, propositioned me in order to get me into a position where I could be manipulated. It didn't work, but that is the nature of these institutions. You can't have a righteous person in an unrighteous setting.
Because like you said, your environment will eventually corrupt you. That's what you're saying, Bob.
Yes,
that's what you're saying.
100% correct. It will. So understanding that that's the case, that's the truth, then you have a choice. Well, you have several choices. You can either go ahead and get corrupted or what have you. You can quit and just, whatever, wherever, or you can build your own. You can create your own. You can create an environment, like I say, our safe, sacred spaces where you can be African. You can be who you want to be. And if that means that it doesn't grow or doesn't get strong enough so that it will last past your lifetime, well, you did what was right. That was what I was brought up on. Okay, you do what's right. My father would say all the time, a man stands. I don't care if there are a zillion people against you. You stand on what is right, what is righteous. You do what's supposed to be done. And we've lost that. My favorite line in a song is Commodore's, what makes a soldier ride alone in the battle? Because he knows he's right. He needs to correct what is wrong. So if what we see about us is wrong, and we don't want to be Urugu, we don't want to be Europeans because we know where that will take us, then we have to build our own. And that's another aspect of leadership which many of us are not prepared to handle, the difficulty of building from scratch. We don't want to have to go back and start from scratch. to build what needs to be built, and everything that we need to build in terms of our hands, it needs to be built from scratch, because the institutions, for the most part, aren't there. They aren't in place. We had some good ones in the 60s and the 70s, and there are a few around today, but for the most part, they dissolved. So if they've dissolved, then it's time to build what needs to be built. If we're better than our ancestors, I shouldn't say better, but we, I think people know what I mean. I'm not talking about more intelligent, but if we're supposed to be better, we're supposed to take it to the next level. If we got the torch, then we need to build and not worry about the consequences of building. We need to build what needs to be built because we love our children. African people are family, child-centered people. We've lost that. That's part of leadership. Okay. We have adopted policies in thinking that have made having children, raising children, teaching children to be something lower level, of having little to no value.
Oh, they say that people say it all the time, Baba. They say it's too time consuming. It costs too much money. It's too time consuming. People pursue career. We pursue career and education and things of that nature. Houses, cars.
We need to teach our children to make a career out of sovereignty, to make a career out of nation building. I saw a couple of lights go off a good number of years ago. I was talking to some students, and it was a discussion about being seen, and I remember. Well, I don't go to detail, but it was a discussion about being seen. I wanted them to focus on conspicuous consumption and not, buying stuff just to be buying stuff, or buying stuff to be seen, or having to have their name called, blah blah blah. And I said, today one of the greatest things for a person is to be walking through a mall and everybody just calling out their name from all over the mall, and your phone's blowing up and all the rest of this, because I'm somebody now, as if you were somebody when you were born, but I'm somebody now, and everybody calls my name and knows my name. I said, you want to be famous? You want to be known forever? You want people to be calling your name for the next 60,000 years? Make African people sovereign. You will never, ever be forgotten. Your family line will never, ever stop being honored. If that's what you want, if you want to be seen, then want to be seen by the right people. Want to be seen by the ancestors, the ones who are returning. Want to be seen by the children because they respect your power, because they know what you did, because they know what you built. So that degree of difficulty, to me, I don't think I'm Superman. Well, I don't want to use the word Superman, but I don't think I'm Superman. But it's to me, that's weakness. I was brought up. I keep coming back to me, but I was brought up in a home where you couldn't use the word can't. I remember the first time I used it, I was told, can't die before you were born. I mean, there was nothing that's impossible. People will raise their children to be, great in this, and you're powerful, and you can do anything. And then when they decide they won't be African, you can't do that. You can't do that. You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna, blah blah blah.
So, Baba, let me ask you this before we head on out of here, because I know we're past an hour. Tell the people about the book that you're working on. You said you have a new book. It should be finished around January or February on this very topic that we're discussing tonight. Could you speak about your book, Baba?
And I'll say, for folks who are want to really do some thinking about leadership, I would say read Iwa, my book Iwa, A Warrior's Character. The book I'm working on now, I've been working on for a number of years, on and off, and it's titled Identity, because identity for me lies at the base of whoever you are. It should be out like the 1st of March or somewhere around there, somewhere earlier maybe. But it's entitled Identity, and it's based on, or a chunk of it is based upon the Asili concept that Mama Rimba Ani gave to us. Right. A lot of people don't understand what that means. They'll read it like it's an intellectual piece and not understand that it's telling you need to be something. You need to act in a particular way. Like Asa Hilliard said, be African. So this book is a discussion of African identity, who we are, what we're supposed to be about, what we're supposed to be doing, And for me, even though the book isn't entitled Leadership, if you are doing these things, if you are pursuing African sovereignty, if you're pursuing the African way as your ideal, then you are a leader. You are providing the leadership that we need. The other folks, that's misleadership, but you are providing the leadership that we need. So I hope to have that finished, and I hope it will be finished.
Speak it. You said it'll be finished. You said the first week in
March. First week in March. Yeah, the goal is to get it out. Not the goal. It will be out the first week in March.
In March. Well, Baba, when you get it, you got to come back. You gotta come back. I gotta get some copies and give it out to the listening audience. So you gotta come back on identity. That's going to be powerful. That's going to be powerful. Baba, could you tell the people how to support you and where they can find you, Baba?
Yes, they can go to our site, www.akabenhouse.com. All of my books, DVD, lectures, all of those things are there. You can also find me on Facebook. You can find Enia on Facebook. We are one. She can connect you. Enia is good at connecting people with the events and the things that are going on where we're going to be. But everything that you can purchase is on akabenhouse.com. If that won't work for you, send me an email. We can figure out, a different way to do this, what have you. And I keep forgetting to tell people, if you have a brother brothers or sisters who are incarcerated and they want to purchase Akaben House books, I am a publisher, self-publisher. So the only people who can send them books are publishers and bookstores, sadly. And there's a huge discount on my books if you have an interest in that to send to a brother or sister who is incarcerated.
Beautiful, Baba. Well, I always had to drop a bomb for you. The audience been asking. They said, "Where's that fire? Where's the fire sound? Where's the fire sound, Doc?" So I said I had to get it ready. Fire! 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 So, Baba Baruti, I appreciate you, coming on and taking time out of your schedule to be with us. People are like, I hope that you see the comments coming through. I tried to show you all of them as we were talking, but people said I'm getting the book. People said you are so appreciated, Baba Mwalimu Baruti. They said I bow to you. So people said they're ready for the book. They want to pre-order it if possible. They're saying they're going to get the book when it comes out. And, Baba, I'll get a number of books and give it out to the listening audience. They asked for your email address and Cash App and all of that and family. So what I'm going to do is after this finishes uploading to YouTube, once this video uploads to YouTube, I'll make sure that I put his information under the description of the video so that you all can reach out to Baba Baruti. Brother Mitchell said that's what I'm talking about. He was the one asking for the fire sound. But thank you so much. People said a beautiful mind. She says thank you so much for your wisdom. Sister Simradella, she says thank you, Baba Baruti. My mother said great show. Brother Quado says salute and respect to you, Baba. Brother Keith Gardner, he says, and thank you, Brother Keith, for that beautiful question. He said excellent podcast. Awesome to hear and learn. And so people are just, people are just paying you.
I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. It's not just, me. We appreciate you. You're doing the work. You're doing the honest work. You're doing the righteous work. And folks should acknowledge the fact that you're doing this, because this is not easy. And I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much, Baba. And Baba, I appreciate your words. That's major coming from a giant. And I consider you and your wife giants in the community. You are our elders. And I just appreciate all of the work that you've done, the books, the amount of information, the workshops, the conferences. Just everything that you and your complement have done. And so I thank you, Baba. And again, as soon as this book comes out, please contact me so I can get a number of copies, bring you back on, and so we can talk about it. Family, thank you so much for joining in. I may go live, Bob. I'm going to Egypt with Tony Browder, Baba Tony Browder on, I leave next Thursday. And so I'll be going, this is my first time going to Kemet. And so I'm excited about that. taking my son Harvey with me to Kemet. And so we're going to have a ball over there. And so, family, I may or may not be live. I may go live on Tuesday. So be on the lookout for an alert, family. Thank you so much for joining in. Peace and Black Power.
Let's combat and fight back with maltraction. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maat.MSU.